bowed himself to the ground, and said, My Lord, if I have now found favor.
Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Bible and Revelations. I'll get right to it. I'll try not to waste your time. This is episode 48A. We're still on the introduction to Daniel. In 586 BC, the Babylonians took all of the Jews captive. Well, most of the Jews captive from Israel. And took them to Persia or Syria, I think it was. Daniel was a prisoner, and he is wondering why, feeling bad about what's going on, and asking God why was he taken prisoner. And he prays to God, and he wants to see what the future will be for his future and for Israel's future. And he gets a lot more than he bargains for. He gets a reply from the angel Gabriel. God says, Gabriel tells him that Israel, 77s have been decreed for your people. That's 490 years. This will finish the transgression. For Israel having refused God's offer. It'll end Israel's rebellion. And also, the 490 years will make an end of sin. No more sacrifices in the temple will be necessary. Okay, and so we'll finish up with this intro first. Everything in Daniel points to the sovereignty of God in the affairs of men. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. Through Daniel, God showed the world that it is the kingdom of his Son, the one like the Son of Man, whose kingdom shall have no end. What this means is the rise and fall of earthly kingdoms. Within the history and prophecy of Daniel are 5 timeless themes. Sovereignty. The overriding message of Daniel is the sovereign hand of God over human affairs, whether protecting individuals who are in danger, dealing with nations that seek to usurp his position, or defeating evil forces sent to hinder his purposes. God sovereignly does as he wills. And also, its obedience. The nature of faith marks every devoted believer from the lions for the devoted believer for the lions or the fire, and sometimes both. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego exhibited the character of true obedience. It is steadfast in the face of all challenges. These young men refused to violate the dietary standards of the law of Moses, bow down to an image of a pagan king, or obey the ban on prayer. In each case, God honored their obedience. And it also, another theme is kingdoms. Satan empowers all the kingdoms of this world. Jesus Christ came into the world to dismantle Satan's earthly kingdoms and authority. Satan rules this world, and a lot of people, I've mentioned this before, but I'll reiterate it. I even hear pastors on the radio. I listen to when I'm driving to the pastor speaking. Even I hear pastors saying, a lady will say, "How come my son died? He was only 2 years old. Why did God do this to me?" And the pastor will say, "Oh, it's a mystery. We don't know." It's not a mystery. The devil rules this world. Of course, God could have stopped it, but the devil is trying to be fair. He told Satan was criticizing God, saying, "You're not running the world correctly. I could do better." He was so haughty and very high self-esteem, big ego. So God says, "You think you can do better? Go ahead." And he throws him down to earth. That's what's going on right now. The devil is running the earth. And all these diseases and plagues and apartment buildings burning down and babies dying and car accidents, that's because Satan cannot rule the world as good as God. It's Satan's fault when babies die. Don't blame God, and don't ask a pastor, why did God do this? God did not do it. Satan did it. In God's view, that baby is now with him. And it's all going to work out in the end. That mother will be back with her child. And everything's going to be good. So, don't ask that question. That's not a fair question. Satan empowers all the kingdoms of this world. Jesus Christ came into the world to dismantle Satan's earthly kingdoms and authority. Since all true power belongs to God, any human kingdom not submitted to God is in opposition to him. Daniel charts the rise and fall of earthly kingdoms and the establishment of God's eternal kingdom. Another theme is omniscience. God's omniscience is primarily demonstrated in the divine revelation Daniel received. God not only knows the grand scope of the future, he knows the movements of individuals and kingdoms. Kingdoms, right down to their very dreams. What this means for you is you get a glimpse into the eternal. Contemporary culture loves the idea of stars. We have star musicians, singers, actors, athletes, and others who became stars simply because they are wealthy or glamorous. This sort of stardom hangs by the most tenuous of threads. Yesterday's stars are often today's has-beens. The book of Daniel, however, speaks of the genuine version. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Most of us will probably never live to see our names in lights. But if we pursue and apply the wisdom of God's Word, and as best as we know how, live our lives to point others towards Christ, we will somehow reflect God's beauty and glory, lighting up the skies in the heaven. Okay. Now we'll start Daniel. Okay. Theoretically. Well, I don't have time really to get into to read the first book of Daniel. So, I'll go over a little bit more of the introduction, and next week I'll do the first book of Daniel. If you're not an Old Testament Israelite whose name meant God is my judge, several assumptions could be made. First, you were probably raised by a godly home. Second, you would supposedly have a strong commitment to obeying God. I'm sorry, if you were an Old Testament Israelite whose name meant God is my judge. I think that's Daniel. Yeah, Daniel means God is my judge. First, you were probably raised in a godly home. Second, you would supposedly have a strong commitment to obeying God. And third, you would anticipate that life would present tests that would prove your vindication before God in the face of staunch opposition. All of those assumptions are true of a young man in Jerusalem named Daniel. Even as a young man, a teenager perhaps, he was intelligent, well-trained, and God-fearing. See, Xerxes, the king of Persia, when they took all these prisoners, he commanded his men, he said, "Bring me some of the best." The young students, strong, young, intelligent men, I'm going to make them my ambassadors. So he pulled out a bunch of the best of the Jews, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and etc. And he offered them, he says, "Your people are now my slaves. I need you to act as go-betweens for me." So they will be relaying the orders for him. Okay, thanks for joining, and next week will be Daniel 1.